Welcome to the chapter 10, Landlords and Tenants under the British and the Nizam Rules, Part 2, Commercialization and Money Lenders. Now, to get more money from the land, the revenue officers has fixed a very high revenue, and the peasants were not able to pay this revenue. And we find the optimistic officials, they imagined that the peasants would change into a rich, enterprising farmers, but this did not happen. The peasants, they often borrowed money from the moneylender in order to pay their land revenue. And however, they were not able to repay the loan on time. And the moneylenders also went to court and got their lands auctions and recovered the loan money. And in the British rule, we find the collecting of the land revenue was so high that many peasants has fell into the deep debt trap. And there are many reasons for this. We find that the agriculture products were exported and the agriculture price were mainly determined by international market. For example, let us see in 1861 there was a civil war in America and British, and they both turned to the Indian for the supply of cotton. As a result, the cotton price was very high and the farmers they took loan and they started cultivating cotton so that in the hope that they will be getting high prices. But the civil war in the USA it had ended in 1865 and the demand for the Indian cotton fell and there was a drastic decrease in the price. Once upon a time the cotton they used to get 12 annas per kilos and in after 1864 they were only getting 6 annas per kilos and the farmers had to suffer a huge losses. This happened in the Ganjai near the place Ganjam. The farmers of the Ganjam they incurred a huge losses because they cultivated cotton crops and the price of the cotton has suddenly decreased. And there was also scarcity of rice because in the fields where they were cultivating paddy, in that fields they had cultivated cotton. So due to this, they had to face a severe famine, and we call it a Ganjam famine. And thousands of people we died of hunger in this famine. And many people they went to different countries to work as a laborers. They went to South Africa, Fiji, and Malaysia. The Zamindars exploitation of the peasants. Now, under the British rule, the peasants were forced to do vetti. Vetti means they have to work without any wages, and the Zamindar had forced the peasants to work on the fields without giving them any money. And many peasants could not cultivate their own fields, and they did not even improve their fields. Now, if you see a government report which was written in 1878, according to this report, it says that the peasants did not try to dig wells on their lands or irrigate it because they were afraid the British would increase or the Zamindars would increase the land revenue. Now you see the countless collection, cesses and payments. The Zamindars, they also try to extract as much money as they could from the peasants under a variety of pretexts, and the peasants had to pay regular supply of ghee, milk, vegetables, jaggery, cow dung, cakes, etc. to the Zamindar without any cost. They had to supply all of them freely to the Zamindar. Now, Doras and Peasants of Hyderabad state. In the Hyderabad state, it was under the Nizam rule, and there were many of, and under the Nizams, there were many subordinates, chieftains like Jagirdars, some Samsthanamdars and Inamdars, who ruled like independent chiefs. and they collected land revenue from the lands under them and gave a small part to the Nizams of as Peshwas. Now we find nearly 1500 Jagis spread over 6535 villages and 14 Samsthanas over 497 villages. And nearly 1400 villages were directly under the Nizams as their personal Jagirs. The Nizam who ruled Hyderabad states were under the British and they are have to follow the policies of the Britishers. Now here in the first of the 19th century, they tried to collect maximum land revenue through Deshmukhs and as a result, the peasant had left the land and went away. So they changed their policies and they started a new policy. They appointed direct district officers to collect the land revenue. And to the old landlords, they compensated them by giving an annual payment called rusum, and they gave them a patta rights over a land and adjusting waste land and forest. And the Zamindars came to know that in this wasteland they could cultivate castor oil and groundnuts, and these two were great demand and they could export to other countries. And they need some people to work in their fields. So they forced the farmers to do vetti on the fields. And in Telangana, we find large landlords and they were called as Doras. And the Doras, they lived in a large fort-like houses called as gadis, and they had many servants and they maintained soldiers. They acted as a money lenders and they also had the judicial power. They gave the judgment and they brought the caste system, the lower caste and the upper caste, and they told that the lower caste people are the laborers and they have to work for all the upper caste people and even the Doras. And the lower caste people were forced that to rule, they were forced to work in the Dora fields, and the lower caste person could not wear shirt or a slippers or a turban in front of the Doras. In Telangana, we find nearly 550 Doras who own more than 1000 acres of land. Now let us see the famines which occurred in the India in the 19th century and the 18th century. Now famines are the massive food shortage which are leading to acute distress, and due to high taxes and rents, the peasants were not able to cultivate the lands, and even the food grains, whatever was cultivated, were exported out of the country. And in our country, we had shortage, and even the traders they had made an artificial shortage of food grains by storing them. And we see the famous Ganjam famine which occurred during the year 1865. And in Rayalaseema also, due to the lack of irrigation facilities, we find many famines, and nearly more than 11 famines occurred during the later halves of the 19th century, and thousands of the people were died. Now let us see the peasant movements. Now till now we saw how the Zamindars were troubling the peasants and how they were forcing the peasants to pay the land revenue, and the peasants were very fed up and so they revolted against the Zamindars. So the peasants were deeply troubled by the high land revenue and the oppression of the landlords and money lenders. And we can see the famous peasant movement was the Deccan riots of 1816, and another peasant riot also we can see in 1922, a peasant riot of Awadh in Uttar Pradesh. It took out a huge procession to protest against the Zamindars who were extracting money from them, and many Zamindars were socially boycotted and driven out of from the villages, and the peasant also refused to till the fields of the Zamindars who tried to evict their tenants or claim too much rent from them. And the peasant formed a Kisan Sabha to carry out the agitation forward and demanded abolishing of Zamindari and reduction of the land revenue and the control over the money lenders. Thank you, children.